Hi, Jeezuzfreak. I think you're probably an okay person. I've said it before. But it's difficult to keep quiet when you will contradict yourself so fundamentally rather than just say you don't know. You've got to learn in life. It's a very, very important lesson in life to sometimes say, I don't know. To, I'm not going to say an intelligent person, but to an experienced person, perhaps an older person in most cases, when you hear someone say, I don't know, you have a certain respect for them. It's very hard to have any respect for someone who will contradict themselves over a very fundamental point of belief. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, well, I haven't contradicted myself, I never contradict myself, blah-de-blah-de-blah. But you do. And you do it in a very, very pivotal way in terms of creationist beliefs. The first video I ever did was a reply to your video, Evolution Owned by Jeezuzfreak. In that video, within 40 seconds of the start of the video, you say that you don't believe in macroevolution. I suppose I should explain these terms to people who don't understand them. To anyone who's studied evolution, there is just evolution. But to creationists and intelligent design loonies, they like to separate microevolution, which they simply can't argue with because it can be seen happening underneath a microscope, and macroevolution, which is the separation of species. The definition of a separate species is one that can no longer breed with the species from which it evolved. And that's where the line is drawn by the creation lunatics. I'm sorry, Jeezuzfreak, to me you fall in that category. I wish you didn't, but you certainly do. Now, as I say, in that video that you did a few months ago, Evolution Owned by Jeezuzfreak, anyone can watch it for a minute and they'll hear you say that you don't believe in macroevolution, the separation of species. Yet, in your recent video, I believe it's called Creation Explained, which our Ben did a response to, you are asked by somebody via a PM, how do you explain Noah getting all of the animals onto the ark? And the person who asked you the question pointed out quite rightly that even the largest aircraft carriers today couldn't carry all the species that are around today. With the most stunning contradiction I've heard from any theist, you turn around and say that, well, there were probably fewer animals, fewer species in those days, and therefore they could all fit on an ark, which was 100 meters long. Obviously, the implication there is that as soon as the waters receded, once God had pulled the plug hole out in the centre of the oceans to allow them to sink down to the water to sink down to the centre of the earth, as soon as that happened, within 6,000 years, you went from so few species they could fit on a 100-metre boat to all of the billions of species that we see on the planet alive today. And 2 months ago you say you don't believe in macroevolution at all. Now, which is it? Is macroevolution silly, or to your mind does it operate at a speed which no evolutionary biologist could possibly accept? You've gone from the ridiculous to the absolutely, totally absurd. You've got to think about this. You're trying to think two mutually exclusive things at exactly the same time. When you're asked a certain type of question, you say macroevolution is stupid. When you're asked another type of question, you have species exploding and separating as if there's no tomorrow. Also, on the mechanics of this flood idea, I do hope you're taking into account all the insects and all the flying insects as well. Because if you take a handful of insects and you put them in a tub of salt water and cover them up for 40 days and 40 nights, there's going to be nothing left. So all the insects had to be on the ark. Now, how does a Peruvian woodbeetle get from Peru to get onto Noah's Ark? Also, it would be fairly slow progress for such a creature, so God must have notified them years in advance to get them crawling around the planet to be in the Middle East for the date when the rain started falling. I'd like to know how God communicated with the minds of these insects. What did he say to them? How did he say it to them? Did he speak to them out loud? Did he communicate telepathically? How did he do this? And how did he coordinate all of the insects converging on the Middle East in time for the flood? And also, how does the Peruvian woodbeetle get across the Pacific or the Atlantic Ocean? Or were there no insects in South America at the time? Or did God magically fly them over? Or did he teleport them over? And if he can do anything, why didn't he just build the boat himself? Why didn't he build a boat many hundreds of miles long? It's bullshit. You know it's bullshit. You know it's bullshit as it's coming out of your mouth. If you don't, you're on the way to being a literal lunatic.